It's always a pleasure to see a new Ivan Sen film in Australian cinemas. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Ivan about his latest film that he wrote and directed, a film called Limbo, releasing on the 18th of May. Ivan Sen, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, and great to talk to you about this film, which is such an intriguing story about a police officer's investigation of a cold case disappearance of an Indigenous woman, which is set largely in Coober Pedy. So much going on there, which I found intriguing. Was there any particular inspiration behind the writing of this film?
Look, I think you mentioned Cooper Pedy, and that was the catalyst. It's such an amazing place that I've been wanting to set a film in Cooper Pedy for some years now, and I finally got the chance to do it with Limbo. And I guess the story just came out of that location, and as well as the want to tell the story about the interaction between Indigenous victims of crime and the Australian justice system from a very intimate perspective.
It certainly is that, and I found the issues of connection between people and lack of connection, etc., so fascinating. And I was intrigued in the way that you developed the characters and the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, on the outside, it's a police story, but for me, it's the essence of it is it's a drama, and it's about damaged people who find themselves attracted to each other and connecting with each other. And for me, that kind of was the essence of the story, and something I wanted to explore in this film, which is very much, I guess, in the footsteps of my previous films, Mystery Road and Goldstone.
Exactly. Yes, I saw the connections, and it's so interesting to see that that sort of development. You shot the film in black and white. I'm quite intrigued. What made you decide to do that?
Well, initially when I went to Cooper Pedy, I like other people, you get you get bamboozled by the color. It's just such an amazing red landscape. And when I brought my photos home, I just thought, I wonder what that looks like in black and white. And it actually looked quite special, because of the white ground out there is very contrasting to the the rocks and the smaller details out there. And so I thought that this location lends itself to black and white. But once I explored it further, I felt like the color was actually a bit of a distraction to the story. I felt like you could focus more on the characters and the story, and the lack of color left you wanting to make more of a connection, I think, with the characters, because the lack of warmth from the landscape wasn't there. So you actually are looking for a little bit of connection with the actual characters in the stories, because there's no color to kind of hold on to, no warm red color to grab hold of. And so you are a participant in this dark environment as they are, and you, depending on how damaged you are, you might find some connection with them,
Okay, that's a nice way of describing it, and it really worked for me. The using monochrome to highlight character rather than the environment. So really quite fascinating. Now, casting, of course, is so important, and Simon Baker as the world-weary detective with his own issues and lack of connection and so on. Really interesting character. Tell me about casting him.
Oh, well, I sent the script to Simon, and he read it within a couple of days, and he said he wanted to do it. And the first thing I said to him in response was that I would like to shave your head and cover you in tattoos, and if you want to do it. And he said, great. because that's what he wants. He wants that type of character where he gets to play against so many of the roles that he's had in his past, and also an opportunity to use more of a subtle non-verbal approach to his acting, which which I've always felt is one of his strengths as an actor, but rarely used.
Yes, no, I agree with you. It works really well. He works really well in the title role, the main role. Of course, the other cast is so important and so interesting. Natasha Wanganeen, Rob Collins, Nicholas Hope, etc. You've really cast very well in terms of finding the right people for your characters, and I suppose that in itself must have been a task for you.
Yeah, well, Rob, I've always wanted to work with Rob Collins, and I think he was very keen to work with me as well. And I wrote his character specifically with him in mind. And so Rob has been he came on board very early, and he was very aware of the type of character he was playing, and I gave him lots of research to look at as well, and he's a very professional actor. He does his homework at a very high level, and as Simon does, and all of them really. I mean, Nicholas as well. Nicholas Hope, he's such an amazing character actor. I just don't think he's been given enough meaty roles since his Bad Boy Bubby days. I think he's got a lot more to offer than what he's been able to give. And Natasha Wanganeen, I mean, she's kind of a local girl there in South Australia, and I once I saw her, I just felt there was something about her presence that belonged in this film and belonged in that landscape. And she's actually has family around there as well, and so she does have connections to the place, which also made a lot of sense.
Okay, excellent. I mean, in many respects, this is very much your film as a strong auteur, because you also edited it, the film, you composed the music, cinematography came from you as well. Having such control over the film is terrific. Did that have any implications in terms of the way you shot the film and the financing you got for it?
As far as financing goes, I think when the investors get approached by my company, they are well aware that about the way I work, and that I do all these different roles, and when I do them, I really jump into them like 100%, like jump into them, and I feel like they're not as separate as people kind of make them out to be, and they're all kind of connected up. They're like I join the dots between them, and I think after doing it a few times now, I'm just starting to kind of find something a bit more. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but finding by doing all these roles, I'm finding the artist in me or something, or getting all of the paint on the brush at the correct time or something, and dotting the canvas. It's been a gradual process. Yeah.
Okay, a true auteur with multi-talent. I like that very much. Tell me about the shoot itself in Coober Pedy. How easy was the shoot? How long did it take, and so on?
Well, it was very quick. I think it was like 15 or 15 days.
Ooh.
Very quick. And I mean, and Simon Baker, he enjoys to work quickly, and but I enjoyed it to work even more quickly than him, I think. So we got on very well there, and the two of us together, kind of pushing ahead very strongly every day. We powered through the shoot in no time. But the as far as the I guess the problems would mainly involve the weather and the wind and some cloud cover. But it's a very windy area, as people know, and we just had to battle that a bit, and kind of, if it got too wild, we had to we had the safety of going underground and like filming in a hotel scene or something like that. So I booked a hotel for the entire shoot, or the hotel room, so we could go in there at any time, just duck in there. Yeah.
Oh, well planned. Excellent. I was intrigued by an aspect of the film, the sort of religious component that's in there, and the religious sprouting that happens on the radio program that Simon's always listening to, etc. How does that fit into your narrative?
Oh well, it just it found its way in there, I guess, gradually. It just, I mean, there was always a scene with a church within the film, partly because I just think it's such a remarkable location, and I just thought I'm not leaving this town without putting this church in this film, you know. And so I had to kind of design the screenplay so that actually meant something to the story, and it is actually a little moment where we get to sense his kind of um, um, his sense of I guess his search really for some kind of salvation there is like a subtle moment. So it has a dramatic moment there for him as well as actually just following the main suspect in the crime. I mean his brother at least. And so and the stuff in the car, the evangelistic radio elements, they just found their way in. I initially had some country music songs playing on his radio, and then they didn't. I just tried so many things, and one thing I do rely on now is more than ever is being aware of what feels right and just going with your feeling. And once I got some evangelistic radio into that car, I just thought, okay, this can actually enrich his character as well, and shows that he, from the very beginning, he's been looking for this kind of salvation, and it just sometimes when you make a film, bits and pieces just gradually find their way in on their own almost. It's like the film just discards what you want to give it. It rejects things, and then you put something into it, and it says, "Okay, I'll take that." and so that's how those elements kind of found their way in. It wasn't me just consciously from the beginning just kind of push this religious thing into the film at all.
Okay, again, that is very effective and works really well. What made you decide to settle on the title Limbo?
Well, that's what the film is about. It's this limbo situation that the characters have found themselves in after this crime which occurred within this Indigenous family like 20 years ago. It's kind of had this effect where everyone's kind of frozen in time almost, and frozen within the bounds of their own existence, which they've allowed to absorb them. And that's also similar with Travis, the cop, the main character as well. And so these damaged people are in this limbo kind of situation, but it's also the location has a sense of limbo. There's this people living just beneath the surface, not above ground and not too far underground, where the hell and the heaven kind of are on each side of you. You're kind of stuck just below the surface, waiting for something to happen, waiting for a decision to be made about your fate.
Again, that makes perfect sense. So thank you for that. That's a great
That's good.
description. And I'm really intrigued because so many of your films deal, of course, with Indigenous, First Nations people, issues, situations, and the I suppose the issues with white people in Australia and so on. You obviously are trying to comment perhaps on ways of reconciliation through your films, I think.
Yeah, I think probably almost all Indigenous artists to some degree are attempting to build a bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australia. And a lot of that is unconscious and some of it is conscious, I think. But yeah, I'm sure that not just my work, of course, but the work of other Indigenous artists over the years have all contributed to a greater understanding of the Indigenous experience in this country, and and has been an education and ultimately a bridge between the two cultures. And as we continue, hopefully there'll be more and more, and there'll be more understanding as well.
Again, fully understand and agree with that, and that authenticity is just so important, and you certainly show that in your films. Now, I must talk to you about the Berlinale, and of course, at the Berlin Film Festival, you were nominated for the Golden Bear for Best Film. Now, what a great kudos that was for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second time now. It's been,
Ah,
I mean, it's 20 years, but since my first film was nominated there. But yeah, I mean, it's an honor to go to one of the big three festivals and be within the main competition. It's such a, I mean, Europe, the European festivals, they basically, they represent the history of film, by the Hollywood pathway. But it's such. I mean, you look at the films that have played within the three festivals over the years, or even just the Berlinale, and you look at other films that you are in awe of, that have won the Golden Bear over the years, and it's just, yeah, it's just a certain amount of validation I guess, to be within the pack, at some point. And it's a validation for the film, and so then other people kind of take notice of the film. And it's almost, I mean, it's not essential, but it's almost essential these days to get your film exposure at one of the big festivals. Otherwise it's just so hard to get attention for your film.
no, that's a fair comment. But that international exposure is so important, and I'd be interested to know with Limbo, how did the German audience respond to your film? What sort of feedback were you getting?
It's hard to tell, because you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what's going through their minds, and if some of them are quiet, and doesn't mean it's a negative thing. It's because they're processing the film, or they've been could be emotionally affected by the film, and so they're just taking it on board, and so it's I mean, it's always hard to know exactly, but because you go to an international screening and people generally will, there's applause and all that kind of thing, but you never really quite know on a deeper level how much of the film has actually resonated, and how far it has gone inside them, because you don't get to talk to them one on one, obviously. So, but I just generally, yeah, it's just a positive. The great thing about the Berlinale is that it's a public festival. You walk in there, you walk the red carpet along with people who've paid $20 to go in, so whatever it is. So, and they're real Berliners. So I mean, it's a really great experience to be alongside a real public audience in a big festival.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the Berlinale. It's a fantastic film festival, and did you happen to see any of the other films that you were up against for the Golden Bear, and were there any of those stood out?
Oh, look, no, I probably all the directors will tell you that they didn't get a chance to see anything. I'm like that. When I go to a festival, I rarely watch other films, because you're there in a limited time, and you have a lot of press and a lot of meetings and stuff like that. So it's actually hard unless you see something that you've been really, really waiting for. Yeah, it's hard to actually find the time.
Fair enough. Now, Limbo is releasing in Australian cinemas on the 18th of May. Fantastic to see that happening. So, Ivan, tell me, are you planning or working on another film at the moment?
Look, I'm working on a couple of, I guess you can call them solo films or solo projects. They're very intimate, low budget films where I go into a community and make a film within the fabric of a community that's already existing, and basically pull the story out of the experience of a lot of the local kids and the local people there. And so I've got two of those films that I'm working on at the moment, as well as something totally different to that, a long form streamer series, which is set up here on the Gold Coast. And so, yeah, two totally different types of things.
That's terrific, and I still very fondly remember Beneath Clouds, which I think was your first main film, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was the one that went to the Berlinale, and my
Yeah.
first. I didn't even have time to have a screening in Australia. My first exposure to my first film on any level was the competition screening in the Berlinale. So that'll stay with me forever, I think.
I'm sure it will. Look, Ivan, congratulations on Limbo. As I said, releasing in Australian cinemas 18th of May. And it's been my pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of Limbo, Ivan Sen. Ivan, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you for that. Thank you.